All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem Kakadash. I want to give double honor to the elder apostles and elder bishop, the great millstone, who rule well in teaching us the truth, 100% securely. And I'd like to give a salutation to the Akim and Aqua who are listening and studying to show thyself approved. Also, I'd like to give a salutation to the men out there on the highways and byways pushing the truth 100% securely throughout the four winds of the earth. All right, shalom, shalom. Okay, so this is another quick lesson. Going into another article that came up about the work labor, the workforce. All right, so I guess I'm gonna title this lesson "Those Who Work a 9 to 5" Part 4. This would be Part 4. Okay, and as you can see, the title, it says why rising black unemployment is a warning sign for America's economy. Okay. Which is in a very article, which I'll go ahead and read it, is pretty much bringing more good news to the gospel of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. Right, this is good news. Okay, regardless of how you see it, because we all know that this a lot of these job losses and stuff like that is going to increase, and it is leading to the prophecy of Jacob's trouble. Okay, and so. While all of this may be a temporary bad thing, this is also good news due to the fact that, the Hebrew Israelites is pretty much reliant on a system that's not meant for us. Okay, and you're going to see some of that example as we read on in the article. Okay, and so the title of this article says, Why Rising Black Unemployment is a Warning Sign for America's Economy. All right, and it says CNN August, which is heralded as Black Business Month, should have been a time to celebrate the black labor force, but last month, job reports showed unemployment rates increased for black workers, and it could point to an economic slump. The unemployment rate for black workers reached 7.5% in August, its highest level since October 2021, 7.6%, and followed consecutive increase in June, 6.8%, and July, 7.2%. A rise in black unemployment is often considered the canary and the coal mine, foretelling a slowdown for the broader job market. The most vulnerable people tend to get laid off first, and unfortunately, that tends to be black Americans, and that's something that is very disturbing and in of itself, said Diane Smoke, chief economic at accounting firm KPMG US. Okay, and so right here, this very comment pretty much lines up perfectly with the curses, right? Which I'll go ahead and get that. All right, so she said the most vulnerable people tend to get laid off. All right, this very comment actually leads to the curses of Deuteronomy 28, and we'll start at verse 43 on that. Okay, this is also proof that we know who the Hebrew Israelites by the signs and wonders. Okay, so we'll come back to this article and we'll read that in Deuteronomy chapter 28. The point will actually be in verse 48, but we'll read up a little bit, which is verse 43. Okay, because it said, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. You see, and it said, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. Okay, and so what you're reading in this article, which it's gonna bring that up when we finish reading all in the article. It said the stranger that within thee shall get up very above thee very high, which meaning that there's a saying in America, aka Babylon the Great, is that so-called black, all right, is always the last one hired and the first one fired. Okay, and that's what this precept means, and that's what again, it points to the so-called Negroes, Latino, Native American are indeed a biblical Hebrew Israelite. All right, in verse 44, and it said, "He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail." Okay, which is going into bank lending, mortgages. We have to take out loan just to get a car, or so on and so forth. All right, in verse 48. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearken not unto the voice of the Lord Yahweh thy power, to keep his commandments and his statute which he commanded thee. Okay, and that's another precept that further proves, because we went against the Heavenly Father, we went on to worship other God, and we're still doing it to this day, okay? Because you got a lot of people, a lot of so-called black that's in this workforce, and they're reliant, and they're basically putting their trust in Egypt, which is basically modern day Egypt is America, which is this beast system, okay? This very system that's pretty much designed to be against us. It's designed for us to not strive, okay? And this is why the Lord is actually mad. This is, Yahweh Shem Yahushua is mad of us, all right? And this is why we're under this curse to this day. But again, this is good news, because this is the last, the last sentence, the last year of years or so on and so forth, as our curse is being lifted up, all right? Verse 46, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder upon thy seed forever. All right, that's again going into that article. That paragraph you said, the most when the economy goes down, the most vulnerable people are the one that get affected the most, which is the so-called black. All right, and the so-called Latinos and the Native Americans. All right, because the so-called blacks have been affected by the job market. The Latinos have been affected right now by being deportation. You see all the policies that Donald Trump is doing, okay? And then you have the Native American, which is very quiet. They're trying to attack their casinos or so on and so forth, all right? All right, in verse 47, because thou hast served not the Lord Yahweh thy power with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things, therefore thou shalt serve thy enemies, okay, which the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. He shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. All right, and that yoke of iron is not as of right now, it's not a physical thing, which used to be physical, but now it's spiritual more than likely, because we have to rely on a job the job market in order to survive, all right, in order to get our daily bread. Okay, so let's go back to that article. We'll read that paragraph again, okay? It said the most vulnerable people tend to get laid off first, and unfortunately, that tends to be the black Americans, and that sometimes that is very disturbing in of itself, said Diane Swank, chief economics at accounting firm KPMG US. And he said black Americans make up about 13% of the U.S. workforce. A drop in Americans in the workforce can have a crippling effect. A drop in a black American in the workforce can have a crippling effect on black communities and on the U.S. economy, which some economists says is already in a slowdown. Black Americans expected to have buying power of $2 trillion by 2026, up from 1.7 trillion in 2024, according to a report from Nelson. You see, and that right there should tell you, when the so-called black is not having that spending power, if they're not able to spend and buy the necessary need, okay, then the economy, which is America, is basically going to fall. All right, and it says when unemployment rises in our community, it has a rippling effect across the entire industry, not just retail, housing, healthcare. The impact are across the board, says Joya Cole, founder of Joe and Monroe, a black-owned candle business in Houston. Cole said the higher rate of black unemployment would be devastating, and it is twice as impactful on small black-owned businesses like her own, because black customers may dial back on discretionary spending. Black Americans are slower to recover from job losses, which means it can be a long road to recovery during the pandemic President Trump touted a job recovery in May 2020. And me and Akim Bahaya Awar and Qadar, we were just talking about this, how Donald Trump pretty much lied about the job market, which it was a lot of made up AI fake company. When you fill out an application, they say you have the job, and then it don't never be a job, right? It's more like a vacant building, okay? And that was mentioned during the Highways and Hedges this past Sunday, all right, which is further prove that the wicked of this society, which is Esau Edom, so-called white man, specifically the elite bankers, they're, being known as the deceiver in the scriptures. When you read Revelation 12 and 9, when he said that old serpent, the devil, called Satan the devil, which deceiveth the whole world, okay? And they deceived the whole world by saying that they create a job, but the job is not really there, all right? And so reading on, it says, the rise in unemployment for a black American contrasts Trump claim that black workers will fare better under his leadership than under Democrat in 2016. He famously asked black voters, what the hell do you have to lose? All right, and then here's this very famous quote right here. All right, this would if white America get a cold, black America really get the flu. Okay, and this is a very comment that pretty much reliant and putting their trust in Egypt right here. Okay, because if right here it says if white America, so in other words, you're saying the white America has to be on point in order for a so-called black to be able to thrive. All right. And that is not, and that's pretty much trusting in a very system that is predicated on keeping you down. Matter of fact, let's get that real quick. Sirach chapter 12 and 10, okay? Because this is basically, that is the comment that's based on trusting in the system, basically trusting in your enemy, all right? Ecclesiastica, aka Sirach chapter 12 and 10, it says, never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusted, so is his wickedness. You see? And so the fact that comment was even in an article, which we'll go ahead and finish reading that, it shows that a lot of the 2/3 of the nation of Israel still trusting in America, and this is why they want America to survive, okay? Because they feel like they can't survive without the so-called white man, all right? This is another reason why you always see these coon J Christians coming up against the Hebrew Israelite ministry, okay? Due to the fact that, again, they feel like they basically trusting in their oppressors, okay? And they feel like there is nothing else besides the oppressor that's going to help you survive. And where we're coming in, us as the prophets of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, we're saying we need Yahweh Shem Yahushua, okay? Yahweh Shem Yahushua is pretty much the way, the truth, and the life, okay? All right, and so this is what we're relying on, okay? We're saying, fuck the white man, all right? He was never meant to survive anyway. The scriptures even said that, okay? So reading on verse 12, and it said, though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. And it says, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust have not been altogether wiped away. You see? And so even when he seems like he's in a peaceful state, it always come back around, no matter what. These devils, that's who they are. They are the border of wickedness. All right? So you finish reading on in the very chapter, it pretty much break down, the devil, and it pretty much break down the very system. All right, us trusting in the system, it always fails us. Okay, no matter what, even when the system goes up and people tend to be doing okay, it always fails the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay, this is why we need Yahweh Shem Yahushua. All right, the Lord is not slack concerning his promises. This is why we're relying on him, because he always comes through. Isaiah 55 and 11. My word would not come back void. Okay, this is why why we make these videos and we saying, hey, Yahweh Shem Yahushua is the truth. Okay, this is what we rely on. We know this is our faith right here. We rely on these scriptures. We love these scriptures, because we know that Yahweh Shem Yahushua is going to fulfill the promises. Okay, we're not trusting in these devils. We're not trusting in the system. Good news. We want this system to be destroyed. That way we can have, rest. That as the scripture says. All right. So let's go back into the article. So I left off with this very paragraph where it says, if white America get a cold, black America really gets the flu. All right, and it says the job slowdown is due to the part to Trump economic policy, which include cuts to the federal workforce, of which black workers make up about 8.7%, sweeping tariff, diversity, equity, and inclusion crackdown. Unemployment for black Americans has led some black-owned small business owners to worry about an end of the year sales slump. In Atlanta, Charmaine Gibb West, the owner of beauty brand Eccentree, said she will have to let go of one contracted worker and won't know whether she can bring the contractor until the fourth quarter, which is usually the busiest time for her company. A lot of my customers like to support black businesses when they can, so to me, the unemployment rate indicates that I may have to buckle up a little bit for my business sales, she said. Toya Poindexter, board chair of the Northern Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce, told CNN that when the black community can't spend, it weakens small businesses, especially black-owned brands, which 58% of black Americans say are important to support a further equality, according to the Pew Research Center report in 2022. Naylor Queen, founder of wellness brand Regally Insane in Baltimore, said many black Americans cut back on discretionary spending after job losses. Queen, who also operates Royalty Escape Travel Agency, added that some clients are more hesitant to spend thousands of dollars on vacation because of concerns about their job stability. Okay, and it's pretty much all of these things that we're seeing in this article. It just lines up with prophecy, as it says in Ecclesiastes, the third chapter. To everything there's a time and a season under heaven. Okay, the time to be born, a time to to die, a time to laugh, and a time to loosely paraphrasing, a time to weep. All right, and so when you look around, you see what's going on in the media. We're not in a time for all of these vacations. We're not in a time to be spending lavishly. That's not the time, all right? Due to the prophecy, Yahweh Shai even said it. All of these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Okay, we're pretty much in the beginning of sorrow, right? The beginning of sorrow, which is basically leading to Jacob's trouble. Okay, more and more people are going to lose their job, and so when desperate people start to lose their job, then they're going to resort to violence. All right. So, that's just, they pretty much, all of these people where we reading about, their minds is not on the right place. Okay, their minds is not on Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. All right, reading on, she said she plans to do more community outreach and product giveaways in addition to pop-up and educational event for Regally Insane in an effort to keep weary customers engaged with her brand. Emmanuel Waters, co-founder of North Carolina-based Old Hillside Bourbon Company, told CNN, I always say that if white Americans get a cold, then black America will get the flu, he said. So this is Jake right here, who basically want Esau to survive, right? So I wouldn't be surprised that he's of the same mind that Esau Edom could be saved. Okay, because this is the 2/3 that we're talking about. All right, they trust in Egypt. It what they say in Jeremiah chapter 17:5. Cursed be he that trusts in put his trust in man. Make his flesh his arm. Okay, that's the curse right there. All right, for you to think like this instead of you trusting in Yahweh Shem Yahushua. What Proverbs 3:5 say, right? Trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. You see, this is why we bring these scriptures up, and we're constantly telling you, trust in Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, trust in the Lord, your power. Okay? As long as you trust in him, he always going to fulfill his promise on your behalf, man. Not this bullshit ass comment that he made right here. All right, he basically trusting in Esau Edom, so-called white man, the devil. Okay, the very one, the main reason why the economy is going bad to today. Okay, he's a wicked ruler. He does nothing right. All right. So let me put this on do not disturb. Thought I did that already, Salakia. All right. So yeah. So that was his little comment. Okay. All right, and reading on, it says Waters added that entrepreneurship can be reliable opportunity for Black America because the system aren't for us. All right, so he knows the system aren't for us, but still he still have that mindset that Esau Edom has to be thriving. Okay, in order for us to survive. uh, for Keita Burke Wildem, founder of fragrance brand outside of in New York City, having a diverse customer base doesn't mean she can avoid a drop in business when unemployment is high for Black America. She says maintaining good relationship with her customers when the economy falters is important because not everyone gets a bounce back the same way. Overall, I'm concerned about everything for everybody black, she said Burks Williams. Okay, and so this pretty much an article that was getting a lot of comments, basically interview from so-called black that pretty much own businesses, small businesses here in America, aka Babylon the Great. Okay, but it's also good news that America is on the downfall, which is a lot of these you know this is very broad because a lot of these business owners were so-called black women, okay? And so who's gonna buy some of their product, all right? Because there's another article where over 300,000 black women lost their job, and those were most of their customer brand, okay? As you can see in the article, because mainly women is gonna buy from these very business owners that was commenting, getting interviewed by CNN, all right? So that's pretty much it in the article. We're gonna go ahead and read some more precepts that I had. All right, and you know, going getting back onto the devil, which is James chapter 5 and 4. All right, just like that curse said, that they shall get up. The stranger shall get. Let's read it again. So I don't want to butcher it. All right, Deuteronomy 28 and 43 again, it says, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. All right, and there's a reason for that because they the devil. Okay, they come to steal, kill, and destroy. All right, they the ones controlling the market. They control the job market. Okay, and so when you read James chapter 5, and get straight to the point on that, James chapter 5 and verse 4. And it says, behold, the hire of the labor who have reaped down your field, which is of you kept back by pride. All right. A lot of these so-called black that was let go from their job, okay, it was actually a wrongful fire, okay? Because they were probably the one, even though a lot of so-called black, we the first one, the last one hired, first one fired, we worked the hardest. Contrary to popular belief, they try to say we're the most laziest people, but no, we work the hardest. Okay, I guarantee you, the ones that they let go was pretty much some hard workers. Okay, but and they kept some of those lazy ass Edomites that don't do the job right. All right, and so that's another example of them which kept back by fire, cried unto them, which have reaped or enter into the ears of the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua Sabayah. Okay, and this is also good news because while so-called blacks, Latino and Native America are being persecuted, the Lord sees it and He hears it. Okay, He hears our cry, which meaning that He's on the way to deliver us. All right, that's why this is why this is good news. This is why it's good news that America, aka Babylon the Great, is on the branch of destruction. It's on a downward slope. get Isaiah chapter 19 and verse 15 will pretty much be the point. But we'll start at verse 14. And it says, the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua has mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof, and they have caused Egypt to err in every work thereof, as a drunken man staggered in his vomit. You see, and that's again good news. All right, America, aka Babylon the Great, is modern day Egypt. Okay, and so everything that you're seeing is the Lord's doing. Okay, He's doing all of this on behalf of the elect. You got to remember when you read Matthew the 24th chapter, where the precept where it says, loosely paraphrasing, where it says, for the elect's sake, all right, the Lord will shorten the time for the elect's sake. Okay, and so He's doing it on the behalf of the elect of the nation of Israel. All right, reading on in verse 15, neither shall there be any work for Egypt which the head or tail branch or wrench or rush may do. And that day shall Egypt be like unto women, and it shall be afraid and fear because of the shaking of the hand of the Lord Yahweh of hosts, which He is shaking over it. And you see, there's a ton of video with these so-called Edomites, the devil, who pretty much complaining of that they're losing because they're the same. Because even though we're being affected, they're being affected 10 times worse, 2 times worse. Okay, because we know Yahshua, the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native Americans, regardless of whether we losing our job, we still know how to make a way. All right, we've always been that way. We know how to make $1 out of 15 cents. But Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, the devil, nah, they worse off. You know, they if you look up on TikTok videos, it's all kind of videos of them complaining, saying that their bank accounts are negative $700 and so on and so forth. Okay, they come in the spirit of Cain. You know, when Cain said this curse is more than I can bear, these devils, they can't handle it. All right, and so this is why Egypt is being plagued by Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Now, verse 17. Let's read that. And it said, and the land of Judah shall be a terror unto Egypt. Everyone that maketh mention thereof shall be afraid in himself because of the counsel of the Lord Yahweh of hosts, which He hath determined against it. In that day shall 5 cities in the land of Egypt speak a language of Canaan and swear to the Lord of Yahweh, the Lord Yahweh of hosts. One shall be called the city of destruction. You see, and that's America, all right? You know, one shall be called the city of destruction. That's America, man. Okay, so the Lord promised these things are going to happen, and it's good news, man. It's good news. So everything, all of the persecution that we receive, the Lord said He's going to return unto them double. So let's get that in Revelation chapter 18. We're pointed in verse 6, but we'll start at verse 4. And it says, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sin, and that ye receive not of her plague. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and Yahweh Shem Yahushua have remembered her iniquity. You remember in verse 5, right here, we just read in verse 5, we read James chapter 5 and 4, with when the laborers were being defrauded, they being wrongfully fired from their job, the Lord heard those sins that's against Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, okay? And so now it reached up into heaven. That's their prophecy that's been filled. In verse 6, reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her according to her work, and the cup which she hath filled to her double. Okay, that's what's going to happen when the Lord give us that spiritual power, and we're going to do everything that Esau, Edom, so-called white man done to us, we're going to do it to them, we're going to give it to them double. Okay, that's good news. All right, and so we'll end this off with, go back to Isaiah chapter 14. We probably start at verse 1, but the point is in verse 3, but we probably start at verse 1. Okay, yeah, we start at verse 1. Okay, and it said, for the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them. All right, the strangers right here are the Israelite foreigners. All right, they're not. Oh, cause that goes again with the coon 2/3 Israelite Christian that's saying that everybody can be saved. No, this is for the Israelite foreigners. All right, those who were scattered into other land. All right, and it says the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. In verse 2, and the people shall take them and bring them into to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servant and handmaid, and they shall take them captive, who captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. All right. So again, we just read in Revelation 18 in verse 6, where the Lord said, "Fill unto them double." Okay. So this is that prophecy that's about to be fulfilled. In verse 3, and it shall come to pass in the day of the Lord. Select, I'm going to read that again. It shall come to pass in the day that the Lord, Yahweh shall give thee rest for thy sorrows. So see, so everything we went through, we're about to receive rest. Okay? When America, aka Babylon the Great, get destroyed, that is the day of our rest. All right? And from thy fear and from the hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how the oppressor see the golden city seized. You see? And that is pretty much the good news, and that's what we're looking forward, all right? So we're looking forward to seeing that, okay? So, that's pretty much, the end of this lesson. Lord willing, this is edifying. With that, and give all praise and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakadash. I want to give double honor to the elder apostles and elder bishops of Great Millstone who rule well and teaching us the truth 100% securely. Shalom, shalom, Kwam Yasharala, shalom.